thank you for your time to last some minutes with us. So the first question, what we need to start say for you is, I hope this is your first time to be here at Gondar with its festivity related to Epiphany. So how do you get this ceremonial or religious and cultural ceremony of the Epiphany at Gondar with its peoples, celebrities and cultures?
Well, thank you very much for that question, and please let me start by wishing everyone who celebrates Timkat a very joyous one. I hope everyone is having a wonderful celebration. I certainly have had a wonderful experience here in Gondar. Extremely grateful to the mayor for his warm invitation and hospitality in encouraging me to come here. And you know, I've read about Timkat for years, and I knew that Gondar was where it's celebrated in the most impressive way. So this is my first Timkat in Ethiopia, and I'm very honored to have celebrated it here in Gondar, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Wow. I heard that today you were at Samin National Park, and there I hope you have a chance to see different elements in that park. So what's your feeling when you just be there at the Samin National Park?
Well, you know, it's been a wonderful, it's just a couple-day visit, but it's been a really rich one. First, I got to celebrate Timkat. As you say, extraordinary occasion religiously, culturally, also in terms of community, to be at the Fazl baths and see everyone jump in, and I got sprayed myself, and it was just a wonderful experience, and you know, a real sort of insight into the richness of Ethiopian religious culture. And then today at the Simien Mountains National Park, I had a terrific exposure to the natural beauty of Ethiopia, and we drove around, we walked around, we saw the wali ibex, we saw the monkeys, we saw all the animals, and we saw just beautiful landscapes, and it was really just a reminder of how much of the world's heritage, natural, cultural, is in Ethiopia, and what a great job Ethiopia is doing in preserving that heritage.
So, due to some stabilization or unrest of something related to this region, different countries pass some warning message for their students, but the others also just come to visit this historically and naturally rich region. So, what is your understanding and observation and the environment of this area for the tourists?
Well, it's been very pleasant for me. You know, I wouldn't be here if I was concerned about the security of the region. We wouldn't let my fellow Americans at the embassy travel to this region if we were concerned. We would put out a warning if we were concerned. We have no concerns in this area. It's peaceful, it's stable. You know, obviously there have been incidents. There may be incidents in the future. You know, I think that's not unique to Ethiopia, and that's certainly not unique to Gondar. But certainly my experience here has been nothing but very pleasant and very relaxing.
Yeah, I believe whatever there is anything related to the country's issue or whatever, and the people by themselves, but what's the reaction and the respect of the people for the foreigners and the tourists?
Well, you know, I've seen a lot of tourists here. One thing I will say is I haven't seen enough American tourists here, and one of the things I will take away from this is to encourage more Americans to come here, not just for Timkat, but for everything else culturally, religiously, naturally beautiful about this area. The experience I've had and the observations I've had is that tourists were very warmly received. This has certainly been a moment when there have been an enormous number of tourists here in Gondar, and sometimes that can put a strain on the host population. But everything I have seen has been nothing but very generous and very hospitable.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Yalo from London.
Hello.
Voice of consensus in Ethiopia in terms of culture, religious culture, and I think the country is
Have a role to play in that, other than as a consumer of this heritage. And I've spoken to numerous members of the Ethiopian government who are working very hard on that proposal, and who I got to meet while I was here in town this week. All I can say is to me, this is such a rich part of Ethiopia's intangible heritage. I would be very surprised if it's not a very easy case to make to get it inscribed as such.
How about the relations between the
Well, you know, I think it's probably more up to the Ethiopian government to promote Ethiopian tourism. To be honest with you, my job is a bit more to promote American tourism, and we certainly would love to see more Ethiopian tourists in the United States. But that said, you know, I think we, first off, you know, in broad terms, our interests in Ethiopia are for Ethiopia to be as strong, as prosperous, as stable, as politically inclusive as it can be, because we have many shared interests between our two countries, and we want our partners to be as strong as they can be. And in that regard, we definitely see tourism as an important driver of economic growth and opportunity. And certainly Ethiopia has, you know, world-class tourist attractions, just extraordinary richness in every sense, culturally, naturally. And so I do think in the United States, these riches are underappreciated. And I will certainly be happy to do what I can, and certainly I will be taking the message back from Gondar about what an extraordinary opportunity is to visit here. We were very happy to host the Minister of Culture and Tourism in Washington in December, part of an ongoing partnership that has many facets to it. But we certainly hope one of the outcomes of that will be promoting more interest in Ethiopia among Americans.
Mr. Ambassador, first of all, I would like to appreciate your efforts to come here and visit Gondar. It is around areas. I am Malaza from Yemen. I have questions, but I would like to stress the first one. Your government warns its citizens don't to travel in some areas in Ethiopia, and it issues a travel ban, but you can here in Gondar.
Right.
What about the situation? Do you think there is a full stability here?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question, and that gives me a chance to clarify a couple of things in your question. First, let me just say that, of course, as with any country, our number one interest is the safety and well-being of our own citizens. So in any place in the world, if we think that there is a risk or a concern, we have to make sure that Americans are aware of that. Now, we do not have a travel ban on Ethiopia. We used to have what was called a travel warning, which made reference during the state of emergency to that, and then after the emergency was lifted, made mention of other concerns we have, and you can read that warning if you want. But one thing I want to stress is that that warning is no longer in place. As of last week, we have a new worldwide policy of travel advisories. So every country in the world now has a travel advisory, and countries are classified into 4 categories of risk, from 1 being the safest to 4 being the least safe. Ethiopia is characterized as a 2. So that's not a warning. That's nothing close to a warning. That's the same categorization as Belgium, for example. So we regard Ethiopia, broadly speaking, as a place where Americans can come, can enjoy themselves. But if there are concerns, and we do still have concerns, for example, if Americans get arrested, we don't often hear about it. And often when we need to put out emergency messages to Americans, that's the moment when internet might be interrupted. So we have concerns, and some of those concerns persist, and that might be why Ethiopia is a 2 instead of a 1. But a 2 on the scale of 1 to 4 shows that this is a country that we regard as being primarily stable and of interest to Americans. And certainly my experience in Gondar has been wonderful, and I would not have come here, as you say, if we had felt that there was any security concern here.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.